I was at an event yesterday in London. It's the eLearning Network event. It was their annual conference, and they were talking about data analytics and what people measure and what people look at and everything else. And I was sitting next to one of our trustees, and the quote came up, something about measuring the number of courses that learners have done, or bums on seats. And I said to the trustee next to me, I said, yeah, if you're measuring bums on seats, you're measuring and you're focusing on the wrong end of the learner. And he just burst out laughing. And he then tweeted that.
I
And
love
then
that.
he's put it on LinkedIn, and the number of likes that it got. And to be honest, I can't actually remember who said that to me, but it goes back to my very, very, very early days when I was teaching. And it was, I was lecturing in community education, and it was one of the senior lecturers said to me, "You mustn't focus on bums on seats. It's the wrong end of the learner, Lesley." And that has just stuck with me over the years.
That's amazing. I
So
never
I'm
thought
so
about
glad
that.
that you're
I've never
saying.
heard that, and I'm going to steal it.
I
Yeah,
love it
definitely.
though.
It's a good
Yeah,
one.
oh no, by all means steal it. As I say,
Yeah.
I genuinely can't remember which lecturer said it to me, but I'm going back to, it was in the 1980s. This
Yeah.
lecturer said it to me. And what she was trying to say to me was that I shouldn't be counting just what students got in exams, just how many turned up to classes, what they got. I should be, if I was looking at what learning they were doing, I had to take it, particularly in vocational education, I had to take it one step further. And, it was such good advice that it's just stuck with me. But it was just so funny yesterday. And the number of likes it's got on Twitter and LinkedIn is just amazing.
That's funny.
The whole idea of data collection, data gathering, analysis has become huge. Much. It's absolutely true that we borrow from other fields, the technology, when we see how it can be applied, of course, to our field. And data analytics has been huge in so many sectors, but only maybe in the last 4 to 5 years has it really become prominent now, or at least being looked at prominently in our field of learning. And there's no reason why it shouldn't be, because it is absolutely essential to understand, as much as possible about what we're doing. So much money is being wasted in creating learning that just is not very effective, but we don't know that it's not effective. We can feel it in our gut, but we don't really have the proof, any evidence of that, because we don't have the stats, right? And as you said, the bums and seats. I guess we have to use butts and seats in America, because bums and seats sounds like hobos maybe sitting in chairs. The idea then is,
I just think it's a great quote.
Sorry?
Yeah, by all means use butts on seats, transfer it. I just think it's a great quote. And I was surprised. It really is.
And it just underlines the fact that we really have to understand what the learner, what's in
what is it you're actually measuring?
Yeah. So
what is it you're measuring? What analytics are you actually measuring? And are you measuring the right ones?
A long time ago, in 1990, I started doing a course in Spanish language training for government officials here. And for 2 years, I worked on that. It was my first project using Authorware. That was in 1990. In May, I started. And for 2 years, I worked on that project. The government agency I was working in had an office that they called the analytics office. And this was all about learning. So even back then, they were thinking about, analyzing this. The interesting thing about that was that for the 2 years I was there, they never put out any information. They just kept analyzing things all the time. And in the end, they were closed down because they were just wasting money. They just kept analyzing things. They were true analysts. They analyzed, but they never actually put out anything that was of use to anybody. So, what they call that, analysis paralysis, I think they call it. You could analyze things too much to the point where you really are paralyzed. You're not really using that that information in any viable way. So it's very important to find that balance between, yes, we have to have as much data as possible, know how to curate it so that we can analyze the important aspects of it, not get down into the nitty-gritty, details that may not be very important, but start looking at the big picture. And then, once you see what's happening, then you can start digging down in those areas that you're seeing, oh, I need more information on this or that. But trying to analyze every data point all the time and then getting lost in the forest just doesn't really work.
The other thing that came up at the event was, when you've got all this analytics, so what was the next question? So what? And then the one after that was, so what next? And that was the three things that came up. It was a chap called Robin Hoyle. I don't know if you've ever come across Robin, but he's worth checking out. And I've known Robin for many a long year as well. And it was, when he was summarizing, it was, saying, but you've got all this data. So what? What next? What does it mean?
Well, when you bring that up, Joe, as far as analytics and what they're used for, I mean, we had a meeting with one of our clients earlier where the client said, we trained 4,000 people in this last 6 months or whatever. And I said, and very happy with it. I said, what were the performance increases? There was no performance increase. They didn't know. They couldn't measure it. How does that tie into, KPIs, key performance indicators? And it's one of those things that in the e-learning industry, or the learning industry period, they're not tying the training back often, and this happens everywhere, to any productivity increases, performance, productivity increases. How do we know we're doing anything? How do we know training is making any difference whatsoever? And they don't in many cases. It's sort of I think it did well. Well, yeah, but how did it do well? Can you measure it? No. But they can. It's just that they're not using the data for anything that may be useful. Now, Joe, I have a question for you. Oh, go ahead,
Rick, something just sparked, reminded me that another great use of it, a chatbot that we're seeing more of, and one of my clients does, is in performance support. So rather than just have them experience that chatbot in a learning experience, it's there on their desktop, and it's smart enough to tell by the keystrokes what they're trying to do, and will pop up if they appear to be struggling. It'll say, hi, can I help you find something? If they're in an application, it can offer to tell them the next step or to walk through the process with them. It can provide a link to more information or policy. And so you don't always even have to use these in the middle of what we would think of as a formal training program. It can be learning on the job, learning in the moment, by having that performance coach kind of right at your shoulder, just when you need it. And where the artificial intelligence part comes in is being smart enough through after subsequent use in test runs to recognize when someone needs help, even when they may not ask. They can always ask, but even if they don't, they're going to get that offer, just like, kind of going back to our first point, just like a human being might if they were sitting next to you watching you struggle.